I thought he was already across the line.
That's
when
what I
he
thought
made
too,
contact with that ball.
So it's one of those things. The players were joking in the locker room that it hit his crotch. He said, "Well, I didn't feel it, so I don't know if that's a good thing." Or not.
I will say this for maybe there's people out there who didn't watch the Cincinnati match or maybe weren't able to watch the U.S. women's team in the World Cup quarterfinals against France, but that goal was, and they brought it up in the broadcast.
Yep.
But I just have to repeat it because it was strikingly similar to Megan Rapinoe's opening goal against France in the early minutes of their quarterfinal match. It was very similar.
It was, Jan is known for doing these types of things when he has the set pieces. And
he hasn't done a whole lot with us, so it was nice to see
that. Yeah. But that kind of started it off. So now we're up 1-0. And now we're going, okay, so this should be a better game.
And I think the tide and momentum, whatever you want to call it just completely shifted.
Well, let's talk about the second goal, guys. Because our boy, Rookie of the Year in MLS,
I think he's got a chance.
Dotson.
Scored his first goal of the year.
It was his second goal.
That's not what I heard on the
Taylor
broadcast.
Twellman says, it's his first goal. No, it was his second goal because we're fans. We know that it was the second.
He was corrected and still said it.
But he said it twice.
45
or 50 yards out.
Was it that far?
That's what they were saying.
I think they ended up saying, I think the MLS article ended up saying it was 30.
Okay.
Really?
And that sounds right. It sounds about right. You can, I mean, when I see it in my mind without looking at a replay, all I can see is the space that he had. He had
they weren't
so
doing anything.
Much space. Nobody pressured him.
It looked like Minnesota defending, quite honestly.
Yeah, and he just let it rip. Let's call it 40 yards. That sounds better. 40. But it could have been 30, 40.
It was a kick. It was outside the box. It was a kick.
Yep.
And again, the goalie they had playing yesterday, Cincinnati, was he? I think
I don't remember.
Was he a second goalie? I don't think he was their top goalie.
I think he was a backup.
Backup guy. And he looks.
We could probably figure it out.
He looks young. He looks like he's probably 19 years old.
So it was Ricky.
Ricky.
Yeah, Ricky, however you want to pronounce it.
I'm pretty sure he's the one that made me think it looked like he looked like Francisco Calvo with blonde hair. I'm fairly certain. I was gonna look him up again to see if that was accurate or not, because I'm pretty sure I was like, man, that dude looks like.
So we're like as you look at it, we're already 2-0 in this game. But I just want to back up and I remember texting, tweeting, whatever it was, that I don't think there's going to be any surprises in this lineup.
Yeah.
We're fairly close to full strength. Of course, Metnier is still away.
Yep.
However, there isn't going to be any surprises in my mind. I think there was a couple surprises. That being on your fullbacks, both Dotson and Gasper getting the start. Gasper with his first MLS start. He started the U.S. Open Cup matches, I know, but in the likes of, I don't believe they were injured, Schuler and Eric Miller.
But I don't.
That was maybe my surprise that we had those two, Gasper and Dotson, starting.
But I don't think Dotson's a big surprise because
maybe
Dotson has played very well.
Correct.
The past couple of months.
And don't get me wrong. So is Gasper.
But
He's played well, but for him to get his first start was a little surprising.
Gasper was a little surprising for me because he's not at Dotson's type of pace right now.
Right.
He's still kind of learning. He's got some great skills.
Yeah, sorry, David. Just to back up, Schuler and Miller were both available. They were off the bench.
And also, Richie was, in fact, he started 15 games for them.
Okay. So he's their primary.
Yeah. But so, to Gasper, when they drafted him, I remember Adrian Heath saying that he was MLS ready.
That's right.
And I think that was one of the reasons why they got rid of Francisco Calvo was because they're like, we just drafted a left back who's MLS ready. He got injured in training, and I think it was hamstring, and he was unavailable for I think 4 or 5 weeks. And he just became available, I think, for the Houston match.
But I think having those two back Dotson, what would you call it? Dotson really isn't he's more a midfielder.
He's a center midfielder.
Midfielder. Yeah. But having those two guys back there, young guys, Dotson can get up get up the field, get up the pitch really fast. He's got some great passing attributes.
So
Gasper's more of a defensive guy.
Yeah.
My problem with Gasper has been, though, every game I've watched with him in it, he does some really stupid fouls.
he's aggressive. I mean,
Yeah,
brought
he's
this up
aggressive,
last
yeah.
time, but
And I get a little worried about him making a foul in the box because it's going to happen.
And we actually mentioned that on the last podcast. Well,
if there wasn't,
I brought it up that Sarah thought he acted like a douchebag.
yeah, I think, and that's we were talking about the point. But this is to segue out of your point. Is if there was VAR in, I believe, the
there would've
Kansas
been
City
PK, yeah.
U.S. Open match,
Yeah.
it might have been him.
Yeah, that's what
penalty
I
in
was
the box.
talking about. Is
Yeah.
he's a little aggressive.
Yep, I agree.
But they're both have done better than I expected. I mean, I
without a doubt.
ask for more. So Dawson gets the rocket from 40 yards out, makes it 2-0. And then we go to Darwin passed to Finley for a score after. He deked out the goalie.
Oh, Darwin Quintero. That's a great point because earlier in the game, it was before Minnesota actually scored their first goal. Darwin did, he did his little dancing. I guess that's a good word for it. He was dancing around, but at the end of that, you could call it great play, brilliant play, but you could also call it selfish because he should have gotten that ball
To
out
Finley.
to
Which
Finley.
Taylor brought up on the broadcast,
But-
saying it's selfish.
He totally redeemed himself.
He did.
With almost a similar move, kind of just he gets past the goalie, he dances around the goalie,
He deked
he's
him out,
past
man.
the goalie, still moving around, and he does get the ball to Finley.
The goalie came out and dove, man.
Okay, I agree with all of you.
Yeah,
But I'm going with Taylor Twellman, the Minnesota boy, who said this would not have happened had Angelo not have been perfect in his hold-up play.
Yeah.
I have been an ardent supporter of Angelo Rodriguez, and
so have
this
I.
he's completely right. Had Angelo not held the ball up, gotten it out to
right.
Darwin, who was literally like a yard away.
I
That's
have
right.
it in my notes here. I said, here's my notes verbatim: goal, Ethan Finley, Angelo Rodriguez hold up play to Darwin Quintero.
Yeah,
blah,
that's
blah,
right.
blah. Yeah.
And
So-
had he not done that, it would never have happened.
Let's get into the hold up a little bit here, guys, because there's been a lot of people, and we've talked about some podcasts before, a lot of people who said Angelo doing the hold up thing is not good for us.
Right, because he's not scoring goals.
But we've seen this a couple times now in the past couple weeks where the hold up play works.
Right.
Because there's a pass off the hold up, there's a break, something happens. I think it works perfectly.
Well, I just love it too, and because they like David, like you brought up, Twellman was very, he was complimenting his play, and you're right, that I totally agree. That was, if that didn't happen, there wouldn't be the opportunity.
Right.
And then it was funny. He's like, as they were complimenting him, they're saying, Angelo Rodriguez, he's a guy that can be a big part of your attack. He holds the ball up well. He's not going to score many goals.
No.
And then I think the fourth goal was his, but which was kind of
Right.
funny because that happened very shortly after.
And that's the thing, we all of the anti-Angelo arguments stem from who he replaced.
Of course they do.
And it's because they're completely different players.
Yeah,
Exactly
and then Angelo Rodriguez was a goal scorer. Like, he had scored goals in his previously in his career. I definitely didn't follow him previously, but he was, looking back at his stat lines, he scored goals.
He was.
It's
and,
not.
And I look at it, I do this all the time, guys. I look at it from another sports standpoint. I look at it from hockey. I look at guys, there's centers in hockey who are hold-up guys who they kind of make plays off the hold-up in the front of the goal. And those are great guys. And Angelo's one of those guys. And our former player, who I'm not going to say his name, he was a flashy guy. He was a flashy streaker type of makes some
Right,
great
they're
plays.
just very
They're
different.
different guys. And if Angelo, and we've seen this now the last couple weeks, if Angelo and Darwin can play well together with their two different styles, we have seen what the possibilities are.
Right.
We've seen some great plays from these guys. And the next goal proves that point
Right.
because we have a breakaway from Darwin, hits the pass to Angelo, scores a goal.
Great play from Darwin.
Yeah,
on that one.
again-
He led him perfectly.
These two guys can complement each other so well if they work well together.
Right.
And then all the detractors and all the doubters will say, well, I guess that was... Actually, they won't. They'll still say, I'd rather have what's-his-name back.
Yes,
but,
they would.
That's the way it works. I like the setup of our front line here.
Yeah, and I love, they're the Minnesota United's only in their third MLS season, but I love bringing up, the fact that they're setting records game after game. Mm-hmm. So we set a record in the first half, and that was for goals scored in any first half of their entire MLS existence with 4.
So we go to the half, 4-0. You guys will take it from here because myself, it was very hot outside. The girls were outside in the little kiddie pool with water balloons. My wife's out there with beers. So I decided after 4-0 we weren't going to lose this game, so I decided not to watch it anymore.
I was glued to the television.
I
You were in Eau Claire, so you had no choice.
And I was in my hotel room watching the game and taking notes. But I was glued to the television screen because I was waiting for goal number 5. There's a couple reasons for that. I mean, 5's a nice odd number, but maybe because I wanted to hear a little baby shark in the background,
right? Which came from this podcast. I mean, it was kind of the idea was floated in this podcast.
Yeah, and I think I hate the song.
I do too.
When we were bringing that up, I was just kind of I think I mentioned in the last spot I had to Google it because I didn't know what it was first of all. But then second, I was also kind of laughing it off because no, that's not going to happen.
Right.
Well, the boys from we were at
Dual Citizens.
Yep. We were talking about Chance.
Yep.
And somehow the boys from Teenage brought up Baby. I think I brought up Baby Shark. And then they decided, well, we should talk about it.
Wait, so are you taking credit?
I'm not taking credit for it. I don't think maybe I didn't bring it up. Maybe everybody brought it.
I don't remember exactly how it went. They were saying that they only had enough smoke for 4 goals. Mm-hmm. They needed something to do with goal 5.
Yeah.
And somebody, I believe it was Drew, who wasn't on our podcast, but he's the president.
Yeah.
Said or mentioned Baby Shark. I could be wrong about that too. I'd have to go back and listen, but
somebody mentioned Baby Shark.
All right.
From my understanding, that would have been the first public suggestion that Baby Shark would be goal 5.
I mean, it was on the podcast though.
Right.
But before we get into that, I think I will talk about the second half, and the second half kind of started out a little similar to the first half in the sense that Cincinnati actually showed, for being down 4-0, they actually showed a little signs of life. And not only that, before Minnesota got their 5th goal, it was Cincinnati scoring. It was Ledesma getting his first, I think it was his first MLS goal.
Yeah.
And they made it 4-1. You weren't too nervous, but Minone probably could have done better. He kind of dove over. He dove over. It went under him through his arms.
Yeah.
He saw that coming in. He saw that ball.
Yeah, so I was just looking at my notes, and I could have sworn I wrote that Minone did bad, and I remember I put that on our Twitter feed.
Yeah, he didn't do well. It was just weird to watch because, some of those, where that ball came in, sometimes, maybe the goalkeeper shielded, blocked. I don't think that was the case. It just literally, he fell on top of it. It went through him, under his arms. It just didn't look good.
It was probably bad timing.
So,
that could come with you're up 4-0. Mm-hmm. I mean, I would put some blame on Ike Opara. He didn't pressure as well as he should have.
Well, I think you take the pedal off the gas a little bit.
Yeah. Exactly.
Oh, and that probably did
garbage
happen.
Time.
That probably did happen. And then actually in the so it's 4-1 at that point. In the 61st minute, it's still 4-1. Kevin Molino comes in for Darwin Quintero, and Mason Toy came in at the same time for Angelo Rodriguez. So they changed it up quite a bit.
Which is funny. They talked about this leading into the second half. Was should they start subbing guys out because they have a couple games here in a row,
right?
And it's hot, and I believe that
they were critical of it. The commentators were critical of it, but I mean it was standard operating procedure. I think for Minnesota, they brought their subs in at the hour mark at the 60
and
minutes,
I think Heath was right to do it at that point.
So. Yeah, I agree.
Right or wrong, I mean, they did. And then actually before the 5th goal, Lawrence Alom came in for Ozzy Alonso. That's another smart move. Mm-hmm. Get a guy like Ozzy off the pitch. He's played enough.
Yeah, and I think Olom has played relatively well, the little that we've seen him.
For being and he's how old? He's like 32, isn't he?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, he's an older veteran guy. Yeah.
But, so that brings us to Baby Shark and goal number 5 in the 70th minute. So Ike Opara got his brace.
Yes.
And a beautiful, we'll get to this, but beautiful cross in from Jan Gregus for his second assist at that point. It was just brilliant. I don't have too much to say about that particular goal,
it's
other than it was a nice head in, and it was credit Jan for the nice assist, and then let it go, baby shark. No